What's up, Proclaim 2025? When I say what's up, you send us up. I said, what's up, Proclaim 2025? Welcome, my name is Ivan Blessed Muhumuza. I'm here really excited to host these three anointed, powerful men of God here on the stage. We are going to hear some of their stories. Powerful stories of following, of growth, of multiplication that they have embodied and exemplified in different ways. And so I hope you are ready. I hope your heart is ready. I hope your mind is alert. I hope you're ready to receive powerful wisdom and anointing as they share. Are you ready? All right, help me welcome with me these three anointed men of God. Put your hands together for them. They are each going to tell us slightly a bit about themselves, their names, the ministries they lead, of course the extent of the ministry, and then we'll dive into the conversation. I'll start with Pastor Gideon at the end there.
Good afternoon, Proclaim. It's good to be here. My name is Gideon Mpa. I lead Manifold International Church in the city of Lagos. And we also lead a movement, we believe, of an interdenominational network of believers in the marketplace and campuses. It's called Choice Souls Media. It's good to be here.
Wow. Powerful. Yes.
My name is John Joseph, Pastor John Joseph. I'm the lead pastor for Royal Grace Chapel in Lagos, Nigeria. So it's good to be here.
Don't be deceived by that. It's not as calm as he's sounding now. Anytime you will begin hearing fire on stage. Yes.
Okay, my name is Pastor Emmanuel. I lead a branch of Global Harvest Church, Maryland, Lagos. I took over the branch in February 2023, and 2 months later I was in Proclaim, and everything never remained the same.
Wow.
Thank you.
I think we should start with Pastor Emma, since you mentioned something to do with Proclaim 2 months after he took over. Could you briefly tell us the story? What was the ministry like before, and how you come to Proclaim, and then briefly what happened after?
Okay, so like I said, I was appointed pastor, executive pastor in February, and I knew that there was a need to do a lot differently. I know that there was a lot in the heart of Reverend Victor and Pastor Jumoke, who are the founders, that we serve. There's a lot he wanted to do, a lot he wanted to birth, that I know that we're struggling with. Both Rev and Mama had contacted new things, so there were discussions about, missional communities, but it wasn't quite taking shape. Okay, so coming in here, I was just, because Rev had told me about APMO. Okay, so there was that hunger to say, what do we learn? What can we do differently? And so on and so forth. So it was very timely that 2 months later I was here, and of course, I wish I had time.
You have time.
To say about all the changes that have happened in the church, but I think quite significantly was also the opportunity to sign on to the mentorship. Mm-hmm. So I signed on to the mentorship at that Proclaim, which was my first time here. And I've never been away from it till now, and it's interesting the things that have happened.
Wow. Could you please speak a bit more into some of the things that happened? I know you came for Proclaim, but 2 months into a new role as a pastor. What happened at Proclaim? What did it trigger later on in the ministry?
Okay, number one was new life was infused into the church. Our church was quiet.
Quiet Presbyterian.
It was quiet. It was gentle. Everybody behaving themselves. But these days we see people carrying chairs and put on their head. So some life really got into the church, the worship, the praise. It was almost sinful to step forward, in those days. But now people are free, free to express themselves. We're still not quite there yet. I have to come and spend some time with Pastor Jimmy. But quite life came in, Yeah. And then following from that was church finance.
Mm-hmm.
At that proclaim, the pre-cal session I joined was on church finances.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I got the courage to really teach kingdom finance, teach giving, teach tithing, which were areas we were struggling with really as a ministry. And our finances have gone to another level completely. Okay.
Yes.
Like I said, Global Harvest as a whole, trying to do MCs. It was a church of cells. We had cell groups, trying to do missional communities and so on. So I learned from here. It was Apostle Kalanzi.
Yes.
He took his class on missional community, if you remember. And at break time, I asked him to forward his entire notes to me.
Wow.
Which he sent to me via email. So I studied everything. Used to do trainings for my branch. And our MCs took off. As at that time, we were about 24 MCs.
24 MCs.
Yes. Now we are 83.
83
Yes.
MCs. From
Yes.
24
Yes.
to 83
Yes.
MCs.
It's not a lot. I mean, based on the things I hear today, but definitely
it's
we
a
are on
lot.
the journey. And then last year I was also at Proclaim in April. In May, as soon as I got to Lagos, we started Business Garage.
Wow. Wow.
So we now have Business Garage, and mid last year we started MC Life.
Wow.
So we are listening, we are copying, and we are following. For me, I think the most significant, all of these I've said they are important, but the last one I'll mention is building.
Building.
Building. It's a great story, but today we have made 50% deposit for a property.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you. I can't stop there.
Are you okay sharing just a little detail on the property and how it came to be?
Yeah, Global Harvest Church has been in the property where I pastor for 10 years on lease. Been leasing that property for 10 years. And we were like, it's time for us to have our property. It may take us 5 years to raise money to get our own property. So we wrote to the owners and said, please, can you extend the lease for us? Because the 10 year was about to expire. Can you extend for us for 5 years? I was thinking, well, okay, let's really start to mobilize funds and plan for a building in 5 years' time. And they replied and told us to vacate.
Mercy.
Yes. And immediately I heard, well, not heard physically, but you know how it is when you hear Abmo saying, a church without a property is a phone call away from vanish. Yeah, they asked us to pack out. They gave us, because the lease was to expire in September. This was July, and they said we should, by September, they want vacant possession.
Wow.
Of the property. So I reached out to Rev, say, Rev, look at it, look at what they are telling us. What do we do? And Rev told me to go to them and tell them that we want to buy.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. We want to buy.
Yes. So we reply their letter and say, tell us the price. We want to buy this property.
Wow.
It was a step of faith. I didn't expect that they would accept because the purchase was never, in fact, in the contract where we took the lease, a clause there clearly explicitly stated that we would not sell to you.
Wow.
Yes, it was there. Yes, we will not sell because they hear that churches in Nigeria take over. Once the church moves into a property, they don't want to leave, they want to take it over. So they had to put it in writing. We will not sell. Okay. But we wrote, and lo and behold, they replied and they gave us a quote. Wow. For 2.1 billion naira, $1.4 million,
Wow.
more than 5 billion Uganda shillings.
Oh, yes. Perspective. $1.4 million.
Yes, was what they quoted.
Yes.
And as at that time, because we are written to say, let us extend, we had saved enough to pay for lease.
Which
So
was
we had
how
about
much?
70 million naira in the account, which is about 174 million Ugandan shillings. That was all we had.
Which is around $70,000?
Yes, about $47,000.
About $47,000.
$47,000. 175 million Ugandan shillings was what we had.
Wow.
And they were quoting for $1.4 million. I also learned from some of those sessions that the first step in raising money is to negotiate for discount. So we started. I think it was when we were with Pastor Jimmy at some of those lunch times. He was telling his story. So we went to negotiate. To cut it short, they eventually ended at 1.4 billion naira. It's about 3.5 billion Uganda shillings. Yeah, and close to $1 million. And they said, to show that you are serious, you must pay 50%.
Eish. Is this before the lease expires?
The lease was expired in September.
Okay.
So all these negotiations took about 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah, I will say that by December, we had a finalized agreement. To God be the glory, in March, we paid that 50% deposit.
Wow.
We paid
Wow.
that 50% deposit, yes. $470,000 is about, so we made that deposit. But the real testimony for me, and that's the last thing I will say, so as to give time, this money was raised without borrowing.
Wow. Come on.
No borrowing.
Wow.
The money was not raised from anywhere outside of the branch.
Wow.
We didn't do any fundraising outside, not to even other branches of Global Harvest, okay? Within the local assembly, who had only 70 million naira,
Wow.
within 3 months, we raised and paid 700 million naira. For
Wow.
that project. Yes, yes,
Wow.
yes.
If you're not clapping, I wonder. Wow.
And we have 9 months to pay the balance. If God will do this, we consider it done. So I tell my members, once you walk into church, know it's your property.
Yes.
Start looking at it, what changes you want us to make.
Wow.
And the Lord is faithful.
Wow. Praise
Thank
the Lord. That's a powerful story. From 2 proclaims, MCs have changed. Land has been bought. A building has been bought. Sorry. A building has been bought. And I know you will be sharing a testimony like this next year in Proclaim. Amen. Let's hear from Pastor John Joseph.
Okay. First, I want to appreciate Abmo for this opportunity and thank you. I need to give a bit of background to my story, so when I get to the climax, someone will not be able to misrepresent some facts. So, when I was in like senior 3, because I think, I came from a very poor background. So I was then sick. So my mom could not, my parents were divorced. So my mom could not afford any form of medical care and maybe taking me to the hospital. So they were doing home treatment, taking apps and everything like that. But so I was bedridden. Practically, I could not stand up or do anything. So by the 6th month, I practically gave up the ghost. So, but on that particular day, I have this kind of out of the body experience where I saw my body there. I saw my siblings, my mom crying and everybody. And I tried to relate with them, but nobody was able to relate with me. So then I moved out. I can practically describe the whole transition experience because I realized I moved out, then walked on my street. Then all of a sudden, the buildings disappear, everywhere turns black. Then it will look like as if a force was drawing me up. You can't say you will not go. And we're locked, but we're not interacting. We're not interacting. Then, I won't say Jesus, because he never introduced himself as Jesus to me, but at a point, as we're moving, then this big guy, angel, appeared to me and stopped me and said, for you, it was not yet time for you to go. And so he took me back to my area where I was living. And on that road, I saw some armed robbers. They barricaded the road and they were shooting people. So he plucked a wing and gave it to me and said, okay, so you know what? I'm sending you back. So the guys that are coming from this other side of the road, if you give these wings to them, they will fly above the risk of the robbers and continue their journey.
Wow.
So when I woke up back, I was in the church. So I think they've gathered and they were praying for me. So my mother actually took me to the church during that experience. So the pastor said they believe that God can bring me back to life and everything. So I got back. So I related that experience to my pastor then, who told me that, okay, that means God has called you to be an evangelist. All right. So that part is very important. So now, when I finished, so now because I was very grateful that God brought me back to life, so I looked around, who is the evangelist that I can follow or mentor? So the only person I could see then was Reabonke.
Oh, yes.
And remember, we didn't have the means. So by the time at that time, Reabonke came to Nigeria. That was when I think he did one of the campaigns. I held his flyer and I said, Lord, if only you will help me to get in contact with this man, for him to mentor me, to train me, I will serve you for the rest of my life. So I think 5 years later, 4 or 5 years later, Reabonke came to another eastern part of Nigeria to do a crusade. So I went there some weeks earlier to volunteer and did some things, but he was not there. It was Daniel Kolenda. So, but they were surprised that we could drive all the way from Lagos for about 9 hours to just volunteer. But something was motivating me.
Yes.
So after a year, then I got a mail from Reabonke and his team that appreciating what we did. I didn't know they took note, and that if I can come over to Florida, and that he was going to train me and everything like that. So they have this evangelism school of fire or something like that. So I felt God was very, that means God really answered my prayer. You understand? So I went there. From that time, for whatever reason, it took interest in me. We sat together, we ate, and so I told him, can I just place my head on your chest to feel the heartbeat, So he allowed me. He took pictures, we took pictures together and everything. So he said, okay, for those of us now that he has trained, he's sending us back to go and start outreach and everything. That was all I needed. So with the little fund I had then, I got back to Lagos, I assembled my team, and I said, now we invade. So we were going to the rural areas, and we're having this actually. Now, I started the church in 2008. All right, 2008. Now, so it was during that time I went to US to be with Reabonke, then came back. So the church were just about 50 or something like that, 50, 60. But the first thing was that I made up my mind that anybody that is not Reabonke style, I will not follow. So in fact, when I later now, I'm just meeting some of this, my brother, to really tell you how bad it was. I really did, because when I looked at them, I assessed them. No, Reabonke style, absent. They have to be, what I call Jim. And so I was going to the rural areas and everything, and we were doing well in my own context. And I was being faithful. I can make altar call, and miracles were happening. We're doing a lot of things in the interiors. But it began to dawn on me, by the time I come back, the church was not growing. So, but I didn't mind really. But after some time, you are now like 8 years, 10 years, and you see what other people are doing. Then you begin to ask yourself questions. What am I? So I began to enter gradually into this season where I began to query, because we spent thousands of dollars in those crusades, and yet the church, after about 10 years, we're barely clocking 150. 150. But and meanwhile, we don't have some modern instrument because I believe, the motive was that I don't know when I will die again. So, so there is always a sense of urgency in everything I'm doing, because not everybody has that grace that God has given to me. So anytime I wake up in the morning, even when I got married, I'm now 18 years in marriage. Wow. So you could see that everything I do is in case, even when I was going to give birth, everything was fast, but in case I die, at least I don't want to go see Jesus with us. So the fact that I can die at any time again, it can call me back, is always the motive that drives my urgency that I don't have time. So hence, the kind of people I associate with must be firebrand, must be, gym kind of people, must be,
Yeah.
So I think 2019, something then happened. I just had that impression. So I just had that impression in my spirit that don't do crusade this again.
Yeah.
So I struggled with it, but I said I was going to obey. So 2020, lockdown came. During the lockdown, we were in a rented property. So mysteriously, God provided. I just saw more people giving us money. Now, if not for the lockdown, those funds would have been channeled again towards the crusade. But this time around, I felt the Lord saying, go and acquire property. So during the lockdown, we acquired the property. Then I began to pray. Then my wife went for a program and saw Pastor Godman Akilabe's wife.
Yes.
And he told me that, see, this man is not your type of man, but I think there is something missing in our ministry that he has. Wow. And I think you should go and check him out. So I went to his place, I saw him, and I kind of agreed with my wife. So we went to him. Then one of Pastor Godman's pastor, so we began to hang out on a monthly basis, then told me that, okay, in our church, there is something that we have started now called Missional Community, and that I think I should try it out. So he gave me some Mike Breen's books. So after chewing some of Mike Breen's material, I said, so who is practicing this? That we can say, Pastor Godman has a friend in Uganda. His name is Apmo. I think it will be very helpful to you.
Wow.
So I went on YouTube, searched out Apmo. The first thing was also, it's not there. In fact, totally contrary. So, but when you see, so when I went, I read the statistics and everything. I was surprised. This man. Then another thing that endeared me to him was that he was following Bishop Dag. Bishop Dag was, even with Bishop Dag, the only part I loved was the evangelistic part. So when I saw that, he had a mixture of both worlds. So by October, I told the guy, this was August. By October, I said, I have to go to Uganda because I don't know when the next thing will happen in my life. So, so I just rushed down to this place, and God so have it, Apma and his team received me. For that 1 week, I understood the system and everything like that. So I went back to Lagos. We started with 12 missional communities.
12 missional communities.
No, I think 10, which were now like the immediate guys that we go and do the crusade together. So by December, before the end of the year, we were 28. But now before I came now, we're now 53. You understand? Now,
whoa. From 12 to 53.
Yeah. So now the other part was that now the wing part, which I think I did not get right. One of the things I'm very grateful for is that, okay, so last year when I came, I saw September to Remember campaign. Now what I do is copy and paste, no innovation.
Yeah.
So I told my guys, I said, see, we don't know what will happen between now and September. So let's start our own before. Yeah. So this past March, we had what we call March for 500 campaign, because through Apmo, I met Apostle Kalanzi, and one of the things he was telling me that we want 5,000 souls in 1 year, and I was like, so March for 500 campaign. So this time around, I trained my disciples.
Yes.
We did it, and that was the first time in our church history we were aiming for 500 in 1 month, and we ended up with 628.
Wow.
Now the good thing was that, unlike the me of those days, those 628 will have been driven by me, but this time around it was driven by the zonal shepherd. Wow. And I only contributed my own in the last week of the month. So I realized that now with this system, I'm actually giving wings to people, but not the way I was doing it. I think the wings actually made missional community leaders, but I didn't know that. So that is one of the things that I've changed, and I'm really grateful to God now that yes, I'm giving wings to people, training them, and doing great things, but not in the old ways, and that you don't have to actually be Jim, like I said, to achieve results. With this system, you achieve more with ease. That is
wow. Wow. Come on. Could you please show us some pictures? Because I think when he says I copy, we need some visuals. That is the stage, the frontage of his church. You know what it looks like, right? Show us some. That is their MC life, I think. Yes. Their MC life at their church. Yes. That's what it looks like. So when he says that I copy, do you have a picture of their building, at least just one picture of the building that they were working? Yes, that's the Royal Grace Chapel. Yes. So, thank you, media team. So this is the power of following and just imitating and reproducing. You catch speed and do things you wouldn't do otherwise. Let's hear from Pastor Gideon. I think this is one of the Jim that Pastor John was talking about.
Now you understand what Jim is. Okay, but really my story in following Worship Harvest, and I want to say a big thank you to you, Apostle Moses Kalanze, Apostle Moses Mukisa. Your impact in my life has been very, very transformative. I remember meeting you in Lagos when you came to train with New Thing, and I didn't, for me, that's one of the first things. You meet up more, and it's just simple, and you don't know what it is that he carries, and he just told me, my name is Mose, like he told some other people, and that was it. And the Nigerian pastor, Mose, and we just connected, and not much happened after that. But my story really in following Worship Harvest and up more is a story of a mental shift and a culture shift. I may not have the numbers that these two people have, and we're going to get there, but I need you to understand my journey. I'm a third generation preacher. My dad pastored in the Assemblies of God for 35 years. So I saw church, and I saw a church that was a denomination and had church plants. But because I saw what my dad went through in a system that was a denomination, and the trouble, the politicking and all that, as a young man I made up my mind I was not going to plant churches. That I was just going to have a base and go around and preach the gospel and love the world, because I saw so much in church life that I didn't want to get into that administrative space, because I saw people literally do crazy things just because of positions and all that. So that really informed my mind, saying, okay, I'll just have a base, then I'll travel the world preaching the gospel. So we started a youth movement. I went around campuses and as a young man, and a lot of revival, a lot of lives were changed. Yesterday while we were doing that, exercise of souls won and all that, I sat down and thought about possibly hundreds of thousands of young people literally around the world right now who were impacted as a result of those moves of God we had and those traveling around campuses. But somewhere in my heart, I just thought this church planting thing, but when God said to me, plant a church, I just felt, okay, that's going to be a base for me. Then I travel and do what I need to do. That had been my mindset. But in my preaching and in my assignment to the body, which I believe God had called me, I knew what the church should be like. I knew where we should be going. I knew that the church should be touching the nations and making disciples, should be missional. I didn't have all the language at the time, but at least I knew that this is what the church should be like. And so there was that thing going on in me. And one of the words I'll always say then, because I had an understanding of the kingdom and the apostolic message, I'll always say something like, the church is not measured by seating capacity, but by sending capacity. And then I go for Exponential in 2018 or 2019, and Matt Miller was speaking at that conference. And then I heard him make that statement. The church is not measured just by seating capacity, but by sending capacity. And something leaped inside of me. And I said, I need to connect with this man. And that's how I connected with Matt Miller and then New Think. And that was the beginning of a culture shift, a mental shift for me. And as a result, in the last couple of years, that shift has been happening. That transition has been happening. And for me, it's just coming to Worship Harvest and meeting up more and seeing a model that now shows you that what you've been preaching and talking about is a possibility. And when I said the seating capacity of a church, I need to also make a shift in my mind that I can have a mega church that is missionary. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Yeah. So those are the shifts that we're having, because I knew that the attractional thing and just gathering people wasn't just going to be the thing. I wanted that, but I also didn't want to have that and not have a church that was a sending church. But coming to Worship Harvest showed me that it's possible to be a mega church that is a sending church. Mm-hmm. And that for me has been the testimony of this transformation. And I've come over the years, and the interaction has changed. And then going back to my context, my environment where I was, now I had to begin the process of teaching my people or changing their mindset. And even in the city and space where we live, the attractional thing is there, trying to do ministry from that place of gather the people, and then the goal was there. So my greatest challenge was that whole culture shift, and I needed to begin with my people. I just want to say that last year I stood somewhere there, and Apmo had said, how many of you will plant at least a church by this time, by Proclaim Next? And I said, Lord, I want to do this. I know that I need to be able to walk in this. And I went back and we began to plant missional communities. We began to shift the mindset of our people, starting with our core team. And one of the things we began to say was, you can't be a leader if you can't lead an MC. And right now, all of our leaders, most of our leaders have accepted and are now leading missional communities. Wow. We have about 20 of them right now in our church. And then that for me was a shift because of my mindset and the things that needed to shift. It needed to start with me. And then that journey had continued. Last year, once we got back to Nigeria, I got back on a Monday. On Wednesday, I told my camera guys, bring the camera, put it in front of me. We're starting MC Live.
Wow. Wow.
And as a result of MC Live, we are reaching people, and we are reaching people beyond Nigeria. We have people watching from Houston, watching from Canada, watching from around the world. Some of the people who have become part of our expression, who were blessed by our ministry, are reconnecting to what we're doing, and we are beginning to see the desire in them to start missional communities and even plant churches. So we're excited about that. So we just took the concept, and with the creative young people I have in church, and we are beginning to see that grow. But the real thing for me was, I came with one of my daughters, and I'd known her since she was a teenager, and she came with me last year for Proclaim, and she sat through the experience. Her name is God's Love. And then we went back. How many of you remember God's Love? Crazy girl. And then we go back to Lagos, and while we were on the plane, she was telling me how she was just going to walk on this, and God's Love goes back to church, and she became like that. All the while I came to Proclaim, I was like Moses coming down from the mountain, like Apostle Mogalizu said, I'm angry, and I'm saying, oh, come on, don't you see what I see, and all that. But coming with God's Love, she took this thing and began to grow an MC, and began to model to the rest of the leaders what an MC can be like. I'm just talking about the power of coming here and just seeing the model of this house. And then she began to grow it. And then 3 weeks ago, must have been a service, she had brought a lot of her MC members to church right there. I literally have forgotten that I was so close to coming back to Uganda. But right there, the power of God was just strong in the service. I said to her, next week, I don't want you coming back with all these people. I want you to stay where you are and view the service from where you are. I'm so glad that last Sunday, on Easter Sunday, we began that viewing center or a watching center, which we are going to launch into a church in 2 weeks' time. Wow. So I'm excited about what God has done. And for us, it looks like, if you know where I'm coming from, it's like a baby step. Yeah. But by the time we come back next year, we would have seen much more that God would do with us. And I'm just so glad following and seeing what God is doing. Amen.
Wow. Wow, that's powerful. The picture you just saw is of the viewing center, right? That's becoming a church. Yes, that one right there. That's one of the products of following and becoming a church planting movement for him. Isn't that powerful? In the remaining few minutes, could you just share with us one thing you could say to a person out there about following? What would you tell them about following? Just one statement.
I like the way the bishop said it yesterday. You can't pour into another vessel at the same level. You have to posture yourself to be poured into. Mm-hmm. And when I saw Apmo, really last year, I had been coming, but last year I had a sense in which I knew God wanted me to take the motor. God speaks to me 30,000 feet above sea level more when I'm flying. So God said to me, you need to take what Worship Harvest has and begin to work with it and model and follow the example of Apmo. And since then, I watch your services. I'm following through all the teachings. Before I go to church, I'm checking out what's going on because we're 2 hours behind. But that has really changed. I'm just seeing that everybody in Manifold knows quite a number of people at Worship Harvest. They know Blesso, and my wife is here today. She's not new to all of you because I'm watching. I'm asking them, go watch this, give me a report, give me feedback. What is Jesus saying to you? What are you going to do about it? Wow. You guys have become a church that has given us language for our longing. You've given us a model to look at. And I tell you, I believe that we will get it right in Nigeria. And what you guys are doing will be kids' play by the time we get it right in Nigeria because we do things big in Nigeria. Thank you, Apmo. Thank you.
Wow.
And you know what? I heard several people say it on this trip. Every time I ask them about Apmo, Blesso said it, a few others, they will say, he puts a 10 on you.
Yes.
He puts a 10 on you. He just believes in you. And following Apmo, I just feel he's put a 10 on me. Just believing that something's going to come out and that my sitting here every proclaim is going to produce something. So thank you for just modeling humility, modeling. You're a happy pastor, and I want to be one. That's why I'm following. Amen.
Wow, that's powerful. We'll hear from Pastor Emma, then we'll end with Pastor John Joseph. Yes.
Following shortens the journey.
Following
shortens the journey, yes, because it gives you speed.
Yes.
Okay? You don't have to learn from your own experience. Mm-hmm. You can easily copy and model, what is being done. I'm grateful to Reverend Victor, very grateful. Pastor Jumoke, we follow them also. They are models for us, and that following led them first to the new thing, and then up more, and then we are able to learn very quickly from what is happening here. Jesus says to the disciples, follow me and I'll make you
become. Yeah.
The fastest way to get made is to follow.
Wow, that's powerful.
Sorry, if I'll just say this, I needed to mention that one of the things that gave me a sense of assurance that I was in the right place was to see my pastor, Reverend Victor Adeyemi, who he had just mentioned, also aligned with this movement. It just made me feel you are in the right place. So just following my pastor and seeing that he also aligns with this was it for me. That's so great.
Wow. Yes, Pastor Joseph.
Okay, one of the things that following will do, because we can sit down here and a pastor thinks everything is always rosy. That would be very deceptive, because I could relate to what Pastor Mba was saying. For me, you can successfully have a culture shift without following. Okay, I came here with two of my people from Lagos.
Yes.
Now, one of them, we started a viewing center too, all right, and he's a pastor there. But I've also gone through a season of intense pain that I've never witnessed in all my years of doing crusade as an evangelist. Because you see, you have raised these guys whose mind has been set on a course. Now you are telling them, move like this, and some of them will look at you and say, this is another idea.
Yeah.
But now, for me, one of the things I had to do was the vision board and make sure that the church is entirely remodeled towards worship. For them to know that it's serious.
Yeah.
So some of them are left. In fact, before I came again, another one left. So you can imagine the pain. I think when Pastor M was talking this morning, I said, Holy Spirit, I think, thank God I'm not alone. And now I know. So I told the guy, it's not a mistake. Because I was beginning to feel what. But now, what following does is like becomes the compass.
Yes.
It helps you to know the end from the beginning.
Yes.
So you know that, okay, whatever is happening now,
Yes.
if I stay, I know where this will lead.
Wow.
So in the midst of the turbulent season and everything, you are kind of calm because you are not doing guesswork anymore.
Yes.
You know where you are going and you are
yes.
following. So I think that for me, following helps you to overcome because it comes with a lot of turbulent season, especially if you have been, like my own part. Now you are coming like this. It's not an easy one, but and it brings stability to whatever you're doing. Then another thing is that last week Apmo did a mentorship for the pastor. I think every pastor here that is not in the pastor's mentorship program is missing a great deal. You can't follow Apmo and not be in the mentorship. And another thing I saw is that something that attending one session is all. Because each session, for instance, I was so blessed whenever one of my favorite part in the pastor's mentorship is the testimony time. Because when you see those pastors sharing their testimonies, they are even solving. Some of them are prophesying that, okay, you go through it, but I have gone through it, and you are learning. And last week, when Mo said about the 6x6, I just copied. I said, what is raining? What we should do now is 6x6. Give me your 6x6. And if I have problem, I call the person that Mo said did his own first. And that is so following makes you stay steady, makes you stay on course, and gives you the strength to weather the storm.
Wow. Can you help me appreciate these men of God for such powerful stories? Following will get you there faster. Following will make you become. Let's appreciate them just one more time. Thank you so much.